أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Surah 75, Al-Qiyamah. Title. The title is taken from the opening verse of this surah, which also forms its subject matter, for it entirely deals with the afterlife. Period of revelation. There is no report about its date of revelation. However, internal evidence indicates that it is one of the earliest surahs. In verses 16 to 19, it states, O Prophet, do not stir your tongue hastily to commit the revelation to your memory. Surely it is for us to have you to commit it to memory and to recite it. And so when we recite it, follow its recitation attentively. Then it will be for us to explain it. The background to this parenthetical statement in the surah is that as Gabriel recited this surah before the Prophet, peace be upon him, he repeated it lest he forget any word of it. It is thus fairly clear that the surah was revealed at a time when the experience of revelation was new to him and he was unaccustomed to receiving it. Some other similar directives in the Quran are, hasten not with reciting the Quran before its recitation to you is finished. Taha 20:114. And we shall make you recite the Quran, and then you will not forget it. Al-Ala 87:6. No such directive was issued to him later on, as he had mastered receipt of the revelation. This advice is only given to him at 3 places in the Quran. Subject matter and themes. This and later surahs up to the end of the Quran were revealed after the sending down of verses 1 to 7 of Surah Al-Mudaththir. In terms of their subject matter and style, these surahs are almost identical and were sent down in quick succession one after another. These surahs forcefully and effectively present the teachings of Islam, its articles of faith and moral directives. The Makkans are warned against their error, which unnerved the Quraysh chiefs, who met and devised plans to discredit the Prophet, peace be upon him, before the next Hajj season approached. We have discussed this in the introduction to Surah Al-Mudaththir. This surah answers all the doubts and objections of the unbelievers one by one. Weighty arguments are adduced in support of the doctrine of the last day and the hereafter. It is emphasized that rejection of the hereafter is not based on any logic. Driven by their base self, the unbelievers are unready to accept this doctrine. They are alerted to the inevitability of the last day, when they will see their record of deeds. Even before this, everyone will be aware of his or her own life record, as one knows oneself best, notwithstanding the pretexts for and concealment of one's misdeeds from others made to pacify one's conscience.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.
In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate.
لا أقسم بيوم القيامة.
Nay, I swear by the day of resurrection. Nay. To open a discourse with nay itself indicates that this surah was revealed in order to refute something. Nay, in the present context, signifies that the unbelievers' notions about resurrection are altogether false. This is followed by a sworn statement enunciating what the truth really is. I swear by the day of resurrection. Ironically, the occurrence of the resurrection is being affirmed here by recourse to swearing by the day of resurrection itself. This swearing emphasizes that it is beyond every doubt that resurrection is bound to occur. The entire universe testifies that it has neither always been in existence, nor will it always remain so. It came into existence at a given moment of time from nothingness, and a time will come when it will come to an end.
ولا أقسم بالنفس اللوامة.
And nay, I swear by the self-reproaching soul. I swear by the self-reproaching soul. The self-reproaching soul here means conscience, for conscience reproaches man whenever he commits evil deeds. The very existence of conscience bears testimony to the fact that man is answerable for his deeds.
أيحسب الإنسان أن لن نجمع عظامه
Does man imagine that we will not be able to bring his bones together again?
بلى قادرين على أن نسوي بنانه
Yes, indeed. We have the power to remold even his fingertips.
بل يريد الإنسان ليفجر أمامه
But man desires to persist in his evil ways. The true reason for a person's denial of resurrection is not that he really has rational or scientific proof establishing that it is beyond the range of the possible. Instead, the true reason for this denial is his proclivity to engage in evil.
يسأل أيان يوم القيامة
He asks, when will the day of resurrection be?
فإذا برق البصر
When the sight is dazed,
وخسف القمر
and the moon is eclipsed,
وجمع الشمس والقمر
and the sun and the moon are joined together.
يقول الإنسان يومئذ أين المفر
On that day will man say, whither the refuge?
كلا لا وزر
No, there is no refuge.
إلى ربك يومئذ المستقر
With your Lord alone will be the retreat that day.
ينبأ الإنسان يومئذ بما قدم وأخر
On that day will man be apprised of his deeds, both the earlier and the later.
بل الإنسان على نفسه بصيرة
But lo, man is well aware of himself.
ولو ألقى معاذيره
Even though he might make up excuses, man's record will be placed before him on the judgment day. This will be done not in order that the evildoers become acquainted with their evil deeds, for each person is already aware of the evil deeds he has committed. The record will, nevertheless, be brought forward so as to fulfill the requirements of justice, which demand that proof of a culprit's offense be placed before the court.
لا تحرك به لسانك لتعجل به
O Prophet, do not stir your tongue hastily to commit the revelation to memory. O Prophet, the whole passage from here to then it will be for us to explain it, verses 16 to 19, is a parenthetical statement which interrupts the discourse to bring an important matter to the Prophet's attention. The need to do so arose because when Gabriel was communicating this surah to the Prophet, peace be upon him, the latter kept repeating it so that he could firmly commit it to his memory.
إن علينا جمعه وقرآنه
Surely, it is for us to have you committed to memory and to recite it.
فإذا قرأناه فاتبع قرآنه
And so when we recite it, follow its recitation attentively.
ثم إن علينا بيانه
Then it will be for us to explain it.
كلا بل تحبون العاجلة
Nay, the truth is that you love ardently the good of this world that can be obtained hastily. Nay, this marks the resumption of the original subject that was interrupted by the parenthetical statement. The word nay here emphasizes that the true reason for denying the hereafter was not that they were truly convinced that it was beyond God's power to raise the dead to life. The true reason instead was that they ardently loved this world and denial of resurrection came handy, for if there were no resurrection and afterlife, they could pursue their worldly interests with full impunity.
وتذرون الآخرة
And are oblivious of the hereafter.
وجوه يومئذ ناظرة
Some faces on that day will be fresh and resplendent,
إلى ربها ناظرة
and will be looking towards their Lord.
ووجوه يومئذ باسرة
And some faces on that day will be gloomy,
تظن أن يفعل بها فاقرة
believing that a crushing calamity is about to strike them.
كلا إذا بلغت التراقي
Nay, when a man's soul reaches up to the throat, nay. This nay relates to the basic subject under the discussion. It underlines that they were mistaken in fancying that death would bring about their final extinction, and that they would not return to their Lord for His reckoning.
وَقِيلَ مَنْ رَاقٍ.
And it is said, is there any enchanter who can step forward and help by his chanting?
وَظَنَّ أَنَّهُ الْفِرَاقُ.
And he realizes that the hour of parting is come.
وَالْتَفَّتِ السَّاقُ بِالسَّاقِ.
And kaf is intertwined with kaf.
إِلَى رَبِّكَ يَوْمَئِذٍ الْمَسَاقُ.
On that day you will be driven to your Lord.
فَلَا صَدَّقَ وَلَا صَلَّى.
But he did not verify the truth, nor did he observe prayer.
وَلَكِنْ كَذَّبَ وَتَوَلَّى.
On the contrary, he gave the lie to the truth and turned his back upon it.
ثُمَّ ذَهَبَ إِلَىٰ أَهْلِهِ يَتَمَطَّىٰ.
Then he went back to his kinsfolk, elated with pride. Reference is to the disbeliever who listened to these Quranic verses yet persisted in his disbelief. Even after listening to these, he went back to his folk elated with pride. According to Mujahid, Qatada, and Ibn Zayd, the verses allude to Abu Jahl. It appears from the wording of the verse that it is an allusion to a particular person who had behaved thus after listening to these verses of Surah Al-Qiyamah. That he did not verify the truth, nor did he observe prayer, deserves attention. It is evident that the first and foremost prerequisite of believing in God, His Messenger, and His Book is that one should offer prayers. Other Sharia duties may be fulfilled later at their appointed time. However, soon after embracing faith, it is time for performing one of the 5 daily obligatory prayers. This tests one's commitment to his faith, proving his sincerity or otherwise.
أَوْلَى لَكَ فَأَوْلَى.
This attitude is worthy of you, altogether worthy.
ثُمَّ أَوْلَى لَكَ فَأَوْلَى.
Again, it is worthy of you, altogether worthy. The commentators of the Quran have offered several interpretations of the Quranic expression awla laka. Shame on you, you may perish. Woe and misery persist with you. However, in our opinion, Ibn Kathir's version is the most appropriate. Since you have the audacity of disobeying your Creator, it befits you to walk in this manner. A similar sarcastic remark features at another place in the Quran. Taste this, the hellfire. You are a person mighty and noble.
أَيَحْسَبُ الْإِنسَانُ أَن يُتْرَكَ سُدًى.
Does man think that he will be left alone, unquestioned? The theme of life after death is resumed here as a conclusion, as it was stated at the beginning that life after death is both essential and possible. Ibilun Suda is used in the Arabic idiom for a camel that wanders about aimlessly, grazing at will, one whom there is nobody to keep an eye over. The Quran asks man whether he thinks that he will be left alone, irresponsible, and unquestioned by his Creator. Is he not obliged to fulfill his duties? Is there nothing that is forbidden for him? Will he not be called to account for his deeds someday? The same theme is enunciated in the Quran elsewhere thus: Did you imagine that we created you without any purpose, and that you will not be brought back to us? In both the instances, the argument for the necessity of the hereafter has been presented in the form of a question. Man is asked if he considers himself to be some animal. Does he not realize the manifest difference between him and an animal, that whereas he enjoys free will, the latter does not? The latter's actions are not subject to any moral code, while man is surely answerable for all his actions. Given this, how could a man think that, like an animal, he is also an irresponsible and unanswerable being? It is readily understandable as to why animals will not be resurrected, for they led their lives dictated by their instincts. They were not guided by any philosophy fabricated by them, nor did they invent any religion. Likewise, they did not defy anyone, nor did they lay any claim to divinity. Their actions were amoral, neither good nor bad. They did not initiate something good or bad which influenced subsequent generations. Therefore, they do not deserve any reward or punishment. Their extinction after death is plausible, for they did not realize the consequences of their actions, and hence they will not be resurrected for any recompense. However, man cannot be exempted from the hereafter. His own mind told him until his last breath about the goodness or evil of his actions. If someone kills an innocent person and he himself immediately dies in an accident, how can he go unpunished? Should he not face the consequence for the wrong committed by him? Does man reconcile to the proposition that someone who sowed the seeds of mischief in the world, which afflicted generations upon generations, should have its final extinction with his death? Should he not be brought back to life and undergo punishment for his misdeeds, which destroyed the lives of hundreds of thousands of human beings? By the same token, does he who strove throughout his life for the sake of truth, justice, goodness, peace, and suffered tremendous hardship in this cause have no right to be rewarded for all that he did?
ألم يك نطفة من مني يمنى
Was he not a drop of ejaculated semen?
ثم كان علقة فخلق فسوى
Then he became a clot, and then Allah made it into a living body and proportioned its parts.
فجعل منه الزوجين الذكر والأنثى
And then he made of him a pair, male and female.
أليس ذلك بقادر على أن يحيي الموتى
Does he then not have the power to bring back the dead to life? This constitutes a strong argument for life after death. As to those who believe in God's creative power behind the creation of man, from a sperm drop into an adult human being, they cannot refute this weighty argument, no matter how diffident they might be in their rejection. They readily recognize that God, who creates man in such a wonderful fashion, is quite capable of bringing him back to life after his death. Those who dismiss it as an accident have no answer whatsoever to the fact that since the beginning of this world, the ratio between the birth of girls and boys has always been consistent in every part of the world and among all communities. Never has this ratio suffered any steep change, resulting in the birth of baby boys or baby girls only, which could jeopardize the continuation of the human race. Those denying this fact can unabashedly claim that even the major towns of the world such as London, New York, Moscow, and Beijing came into existence all of a sudden accidentally. It is clear from several reports that on reciting this verse, particularly in response to the question put forward by God, the Prophet, peace be upon him, used to say, Bala, why not? Or Subhanaka Allahumma fa bala. Glory be to you, O Lord, why not? Or Subhanaka wa bala. Ibn Jarir al-Tabari, Ibn Abi Hatim, and Abu Dawud and Tafsir of Ibn Kathir. On the authority of Abu Huraira, Abu Dawud narrates this report. The Prophet instructed, when you recite verse 8 of Surah Al-Tin, you should say, Bala wa ana ala dalika min al-shahidin. Yes, I am one of those who testify to it. When you recite verse 40 of Surah Al-Qiyamah, you should say, Bala, why not? Likewise, on reciting verse 50 of Surah Al-Mursalat, you should say, Amanna bi illah. We believe in Allah. Reports with a similar tenor are cited by Ahmad, Tirmidhi, Ibn al-Mundhir, Ibn Murdawayh, Bihaqi, and Hakim.